Mommy's with the maggots now.
A lot of movies claim to be like no holds barred where it comes to horror, but this really goes there. Like everyone is fair game. What was your reaction when you first read the script? Could you really believe they were gonna make this movie?
First reaction reading the script was absolute like inner child excitement. You're like, to go into the physicality like that. I think especially as a female in film, I've realized when I reflect on all the other characters, also just acting in general, 2 steps in, hit your mark, say your lines, something dramatic. Whereas this was just full physical, let it rip. And also just the amazing thing of pulling off stunts and in-house camera tricks, and the practical side of Evil Dead was just so exciting, where like all departments had to be on board. If one fell, we all fell. Acting came last in a way, and it was just like pulling off gags and suspense, which was just such a brilliant experience.
Yeah, definitely. And Alyssa, I wonder, obviously it's a very physical role for you. In any way, did your work on Vikings help prepare in any way for the physicality that this role would require?
No, not at all.
Were you in a corset?
I was a royal on Vikings. I sat in a throne and like drank mead. I know everyone else got to be really physical on Vikings, and I was like itching for that, but that just wasn't the role that I was playing. So no, not in any way did it prepare me. And I remember the others talking about doing stunts and the fight choreography and everything. Yeah, I was at home sitting by the fire with the kids.
Now you got to let it rip.
It's a very different experience for me.
You didn't go back to the cast members and like be like, guys, can you help me out a bit here? What tips for dealing with this?
It's like, I feel your pain now. I get it now. It was still different because they did a lot of stuff out on boats. This was like, we were on one set that was purpose built for us. We shot chronologically. So I think you're always comparing apples and oranges from one job to the next. There's always differences. And just piggybacking off what Lily said earlier, you really get to see every department shine, because everyone has to like go to the ends of the earth for what they're putting together. So it's a very unique experience.
Yeah. And Lily, while you might not get the same kind of Deadite transformation for this, it still feels like it's a physical role still for you, because it feels like every scene Beth has a new injury to go with at some point, or a different bandage somewhere.
Or like picking up weapons along the way as well.
Yeah.
I felt like I was in a video game. Lee would be like, okay, today you have a hammer. And I'd be like, okay, today you need to like, it was just all these little obstacles that I was just constantly trying to get through, also with a 9-year-old and protected children being like, it was very, very cool in that way. It's super physical. Stuart Thorpe is an amazing stunt coordinator who just like trusted us. We also had amazing doubles as well. But like a lot of it we got to do, which was just really awesome and just so epic to be physical. You're like, it feels more like dancing and acting, which is sometimes really nice to get out of the intellectual and into the physical.
Did you get to talk to either Bruce Campbell or maybe even Jane Levy about like taking on this kind of lead role in an Evil Dead film and get some tips?
No, you know what? They let Lee go. Like they were like, we want you to move the franchise forward. We want you to like breathe life into yourself. We connected a lot after. And then it was like, oh, cool. Now you chime in, all of you guys. But I think like the less warning, the better with an Evil Dead film now that we've all bonded. It was like, okay, I'm kind of glad you didn't tell me anything.
Yeah, it's more like you run the gauntlet and then trade war stories afterwards.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've kind of got it spot on. I also like to have a prologue that just teases or gives an impression of the, what the experience of the movie is going to be. I did the same my first movie, The Hole in the Ground. If you watch the prologue and that, it's kind of like a mini version of what's to come, or thematically showing you a kind of a way in. And in this film, I knew I just wanted to scare people up front so that they, I kind of get to buy their time so I can then explore character, because that was important. Because I knew once I turned this film that, there's less chance for character development. You've got to kind of go with the, the crazy bloody juggernaut that the movie becomes. But yeah, it is. I getting the chance to make an Evil Dead movie, I wanted to move it to the city, but also that little part of me was disappointed that I wasn't getting to go to the cabin. So I was like, you know what? I'll put a cabin at the start of the film. and slightly subvert people's expectations, like with the opening shot, where fans so instantly recognize what they're looking at. But then I twist it and I say, I get what it is too, but I'm going to bring you on a different journey. And that was kind of an important way into the story for me, or into presenting the movie to an audience.
Alyssa, when the trailer came out, the cheese grater scene obviously went viral, but there are definitely other unforgettable moments. I won't go into spoilers, but there's an eyeball moment that keeps going round in my head after seeing the film. So how was that when you were filming it? Was that a point where you're like, what the hell movie am I making here as you were doing that?
It's so funny because there are moments it's your job, right? You go to work Monday to Friday, and it's funny because stuff can become really normalized for you, because it's like, this is my job, I'm going to work, this is what I do, and at the end of the day I go home and I put my feet up and I have a cold beer. But there are these amazing moments, and this is what I love about film, is that like when you just stop and take in your surroundings, you're like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing today? And I think those moments happen so much more on Evil Dead Rise, because like the absurd things you're doing. And it's like you go and you're like, well, this day is going to be a really crazy day. But after this, things will probably calm down a little bit. We'll get through today. And then, of course, you go again the day after and it's ramped up and you're like, oh God, we've gone up a notch.
And shooting in chronological order.
Doing that. Yeah.
It's like, essentially, it was like my first assistant director traveled from Ireland with me to New Zealand to make the movie. And it was one of the things he identified very early on was, for the most part, we need to shoot this movie in order because we're not going to have time to clean up the carnage. And what was interesting about that was, as the film, because the film keeps on trying to top itself the whole time, with the next scene, it gets bigger, it gets kind of crazier, it gets more terrifying. So as a cast and crew, we were going on the journey just like the characters. As we were getting more exhausted, making the movie was getting harder, the set pieces were getting bigger, the technique was getting more challenging. So it was quite a crazy way to shoot a movie. And I'd say we shot about 85% of it in order.
Lily, it builds up to, there's a moment in it that is teased in the trailer, but it's the shining moment, if we can say it that way around. And as building chronologically, you'd already had some kind of fake blood experience, but just how practical was that as well? Were you literally just covered head to toe?
Covered head to toe, slowly being dipped into a massive tank as it actually...
Which was delightful, I'm sure.
Yeah, and then like down with like 30 kilos of weights on a harness, so because you're buoyant in that blood. And giving like Nell, a 9-year-old, to hold, and I'm like quite claustrophobic. So at one point when it's up here and you're actually just treading water, like it was all, that's the beauty of Evil Dead, is it's all like, it's practical. And then like, you know, they built the giant slippery slide again with all the different departments. It's so magical. You got like the crew coming up and being like, check out what we've made. And it's just like this drop slide where the blood opens up down a ramp and washes through in one take, and like you're just like, what is this? Also, how rock and roll for every department. It's just like everyone is 12 years old.
Yeah,
I'm excited to see it again after that, Lily.
Do I sell it to you guys?
Yeah, you did. Well done.
Yeah, there are definitely moments where I'm like, surely if you were on set, you'll think, God, how cool is this? How cool do I look right about now?
Yeah, you're either going to look like a lobster or like the blood's going to be kind of hot. And I'm like, at one point we were like, and they're like, no, it's designer blood. This is good. Work it.
It was all very hard. I'm going to kind of more explain to you, rather than a particular thing. The thing that I learned was there was no one-size-fits-all solution to any of those moments in the movie, what the crew always refer to as gags, you know? And I'm like, some of these moments are not funny, but that's what they're called. But that's what was interesting. It wasn't like, hey, somebody's going to get stabbed this way, or this event is going to happen and this is how we do it. We needed 5 solutions to each thing. So even something as simple as just a basic, I was going to say as simple as a stabbing through the hand, that everyday thing, that required like 4 or 5 different rigs to actually capture the different angles that were required that I wanted, because I wanted this movie to have a lot of visual intensity, and it's quite packed. It's quite a detailed, detailed visually, the storytelling is. So yeah, there was no, they were all hard and they all required these multiple solutions, which that was very illuminating to me. It's like, hey, we need to build, and we'd have all these names for different things. It's like, how's work going on the bow and arrow, which would be a way of you know, like of concealing, putting something through someone's head and having a thing around the side so you can't see that it's there. But then we need 5 other versions of that, 5 different kind of rigs. So yeah, the crew worked extremely hard, but they were driven and really creative people, so they helped me figure it all out.